And for the sake of the recording, I will talk slowly about why we're here while we let people join. So for those who have not participated in this space before, we are hosting this in the Meeting Innovation community, which is a free, open community for all things meeting performance related. This particular series was started in like the Facilitator network. I don't remember what they're called, which is an online, like basically email list. And for those who are curious, that is the overall plan. So 90 minutes scheduled today.
Please, sorry, I'll let people in so you can focus on everything.
Yay, yay, yay. Hi, Vivian. Hi, Liz. Hi, Mia. Hi, Marta.
Hello.
Hi, Jamie.
I'm here just for the first minutes. I'm very sorry. I have this party. But I really want to start with you. So very sorry for that.
I don't think you should ever apologize for having a party to go to. That sounds
yes,
delightful.
It's true. I'm looking forward.
So again, we're at 90 minutes recording. This is the third of 3 events, and our intentions today is to harvest. So over the last several months, what have we learned, and what are like some hard and fast, absolutely do this, absolutely do not do that kinds of ideas that we can bring to the fore. We're all facilitators. Most of us are facilitators or running events like this. So responsible parties today are you. You're all in charge. I'll handle tech host, and Nancy is going to help me tech host. And I have a suggested plan. So let me share that with you. And if you dislike it, we'll just change it. Okay. So in the chat, here's the thought. I thought we would begin with some impromptu networking where we get into some smaller groups and say, okay, what are the topics? Hi, Heather. Hi, Rachel. Hi, Sarah. What are the topics we need to talk about? So what have you learned on your own? What's your experience, and what are your top questions today? Then Michelle did a fabulous job of leading fish bowls to kick us off originally. I thought we'd just return to that. So given the top topics are surfaced from those smaller groups, let's just hear some stories. And then finally, after we do that, I thought we'd break into some small groups and sort of focus on capturing some things. And I have a Miro board set up where we can do some of that capture of, what are the must-haves? What are the red lines? All of that. Let me pop the link in for you now. Does that plan work, or should we come up with a new one? A thumbs up if it's an okay enough plan. All right. Well, given if that's an okay enough plan, then our first thing is introductions. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into small groups. I think maybe 3 groups of 3. And here's our prompt. What's your name? What's your experience with hybrid events? And what do you hope to get out of today's session? So let me actually make the breakouts, and then we'll get going. Questions before we break into smaller groups, not people.
I'd like
although
to
that is also a September event for me.
Elise, just a question. Do you want to keep me in the main room since I'm the co-host, or do you want to put me in a group? I'm happy to do either.
I'm gonna put you in a group, Nancy, because I know you're here to do things. So, and I'll manage the main room. Sound good?
All right, thanks.
All right, have fun. 8 minutes.
Hi, Elise.
Hi, Paul. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. I suppose that you already break out the group for interest.
You know, I did. I want to join a group.
Yeah. Are you going to do another round?
Probably not.
Okay, so put
Yeah. Or you can stay here and talk with Helen and Daida.
Hi.
Our question today is, what's your name? What's your experience with hybrid meetings? And what do you most want to get out of today's session? So everybody who's just joined, we're in breakouts. The breakouts are going, and you get to be in this breakout. And here's your prompt, and I'll be quiet.
Greetings, everyone. Hi, Ellen. Hi, Data. Oh, never.
Yep. Daita is good.
And Annie. Who is reaching from Europe?
Not today. Not today.
All North Americans. Oh, Lucas.
Welcome, Lucas. We are in breakout rooms, but this is the big breakout room of people who are arriving after we're in breakout rooms. The prompt is, who are you? What's your experience with hybrid events? And what do you most want to get out of today? Helen, would you mind kicking us off on that one and then elect the next person?
Sure. My name, Helen Wyeth, hailing from Treaty 6 territory in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, home of the Papachis Cree First Nation, Métis Nation Zone 4. And my experience with hybrid events is some. We are having lots of requests from folks in terms of what are some of the best practices. So part of my reason for here today is to hear what other people are experiencing and learning about hybrid meetings so that my learning curve is not straight up like a satellite, which in my 6th decade is not something I want to participate in right now. I'd rather have a gentler curve. I'm not good on some of those rides that go straight up and then come straight down again. So that's where I'm from today, and I'm complete.
Anybody like to go next?
Sorry, who did you say?
You, it's you.
Oh, sorry, I got to choose someone else.
All right, I'll go. I'm Daita Sergi. I'm a senior education manager with ASHI. We're a nonprofit organization. We work with campuses to help them be more sustainable. And that's both on the operation side and the what they teach their students. And I have 0 experience with hybrid. We switched 100% to virtual. And so far, we've been in the virtual world. We have an annual conference. I am involved with the call for proposals for that and so on, but I'm also managing a virtual workshops and webinars programs, and the workshops are doing really, really, really well. And I do not want to go to back to in person. So on the hybrid question, I want to understand why we would do anything like that. Or can we have 2 different programs, one that's fully virtual and maybe we'll have to have some in-person events, and will they look totally different than what they looked before? So yeah, this is where I'm coming from. Oh, and I'm in Fairfax, Virginia. Thank you. I'm gonna go to Amy next.
And we have 3.5 minutes left.
Okay, I've led hybrid events and I've attended hybrid events, and I pay attention to what's happening out in the world of writing about hybrid events. And I'm very curious. Yeah, I'm always like to hear what other people are thinking about, experimenting with, what other people are up to. So, Lucas.
Thank you, Amy. I'll go in reverse order. I agree with everything you said. Supported hybrid events. We're an events platform, a Kiko chat, and we're here to just see what people want as they keep innovating. And our goal is to help their vision come to life through Zoom. We're a Zoom partner, and I'm based in New York. Very happy to be here. The last session was great. So got a high bar, Elise. We gotta get back to that really excellent first session. I think we'll do it.
Yeah, definitely. Hi, my name is Paul. I do host hybrid events, but it's still a challenge for me. So I'm here to learn a little bit more. And I love these kinds of circles of practice that Elise hosts. And good to see a friendly face like Lucas. We never met in person, but it seems to be an old pal. And Lucas, I'm curious how you adapt Kiko for hybrid too. And want to talk more about that.
Wow, nice. We have 2 minutes left. I'm Elise. I'm actually organizing a multi-day hybrid conference and a large research experiment on the difference between in-person and hybrid and remote events. Lucas, I'd like to talk to you about some of these things at some point. So I am super interested in having handy go-to sheets that I can hand to clients or that facilitators can hand to clients. Say, if a client says, I want a hybrid event, I would love to have them say, well, okay, that means this. At a minimum bar, are you ready? And I would love to have something that we can hand to venues, like conference venues and hotels and things that says, can you give me a hybrid ready space? That means it has at least these things. Like, I would love to have some of those, like just baseline understandings distributed through the universe. Hi, Francois, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. Hello, everyone.
We are 1 minute into, we have 1 minute left in this breakout. I'm going to practice. I'm going to see if this new Zoom feature works where I can yell at everybody in breakouts and tell them they've got a minute left. And then Francois, the question is, what's your name? What's your experience with hybrid? And what do you hope to get out of today? So 3 seconds. Okay.
In 3 seconds.
Hey, breakout people, can you hear me? You have a minute left. I don't think that worked. I think I did it wrong. All right.
I can't try that.
Hey, breakout. Okay, let's try this. Hey, breakout people, can you hear me? You have 1 minute left. All right, Francois, tell us about yourself.
Okay, so my name is Francois Nuchtel. I'm based in the UK. Experience with hybrid. Okay, so I've got lots of experience in person, lots of experience of online, and now the hybrid is the next challenge. So I've got very little experience in the hybrid because, especially, I think there's a lot of experience around in terms of non-interactive. So more broadcasting. I mean, the whole broadcasting industry is in fact a kind of hybrid, if you want, or can be a hybrid, but. Getting the interaction in the two worlds, the online world, and they are completely different worlds, and you can make them work beautifully. Getting them to work together, that's a big challenge for me. And I don't have a lot of experience, but that's what I also hope to get from today, learn what I can, because I do have some hybrid events coming up.
Excellent. Welcome. Welcome back, everyone. I hope those were interesting conversations and just long enough to be productive, but not so long that you got bored. Let's see what we learned. What do you most want to talk about today? I'm going to put that in the chat, and I would love to see your answers in the chat, or you're welcome to just signal that you would like to speak. Did the audio broadcast work, by the way? People, yeah.
I think it's disruptive. I've had it yesterday tested too, and it's you're talking and then somebody talks over, you have to wait, or just I think it's only for urgent things. But
I didn't hear Thank you.
Yeah.
Just being honest.
No, that's good. It was an experiment. We've never used it before.
Yeah. I think also it's like seeing the notice and you just like check it. It's not so disruptive. Yeah. But cool. I heard you, but I had to hear the conversation still. So it was like a little bit of, I'm hearing, what does this voice come from? Yeah.
Thank you for the feedback. Okay, so it looks to me in the chat like we have a whole bunch of interesting questions. Is there somebody, Michelle, I'm wondering, would you be willing to be, or are you interested in being a fishbowl facilitator?
Sure. Sorry. Unmuting, finding, getting here. But yes, I can help out however you like. Sure.
And so given that we have these conversations, and that you did such a beautiful job of curating the first one, if you want to pick the topic and then elect some folks to fishbowl on it, that would be great. Would somebody else like to keep track of time? I think we got about 25 minutes for this one. Nancy?
Yeah, I'll set my timer and just tell me when to start.
All right.
Sorry, I'm scrolling through the chat. So here we go. Not to take my, I'm scrolling. Minimum. So the necessary conditions, minimum specs, level playing field. Why do it? Why don't we do one on why are we doing hybrid events? What are your intentions and how do you keep it inclusive? So why do we do them and how do we keep it inclusive? I think, does anyone feel passionate about why we do hybrid events? Maybe we can spotlight the people that want to be. Why do it? It's a great question because I'm avoiding them like crazy. So, okay, Liz, we're going to spotlight you. Really spotlight you, actually. Oh, there you go. Somebody did it. Oh, I love this.
So why do we do hybrid events? We do them out of necessity because people can't travel, won't travel, don't want to travel, budget cuts, all the reasons. So we got half the group that are able to come in person and the other half that can't. And so now we're forced into this environment where we need to make it productive for everybody. But now it's called hybrid. Or alternately, you had somebody at the very last minute with your whole in-person event who couldn't get there that was supposed to speak and be a part of it. Now you got to Zoom them in or Teams them in or something. Now all of a sudden it's magically hybrid. I think the biggest challenge is that we've turned hybrid into a monster in our heads when pre-pandemic, many of us were doing hybrid long before with this thing called conference call. And we would just dial people in and they would listen in, they would contribute. They would say, hey, this is Liz, because you couldn't see them and they do the voice thing and then you'd know. And it worked great. And I don't know why it's so hard now.
Anybody want to join her? Can we spotlight Amy? Anybody else just while I'm flicking through here? Raise your hand.
Well,
Rachel. Okay, so Amy and Rachel maybe can. And sorry, that was Liz, that was awesome. You spoke very fast. I had a hard time to follow. So there was so many great points on there. So Amy or Rachel, if we can spotlight her as well, then maybe you guys can build on some of those points.
Rachel, wave so I can see you easier, or raise your hand. Oh, thank you.
Oh, right.
I want to let Rachel speak to, wait, is that Rachel? Okay, different Rachel. I would say that conference calls in the official formal language sucked. And that, especially if you're the person on the other end of that call, you didn't participate well, you weren't included, and the people in the room really didn't benefit as much as we can from that voice. So I think we were doing hybrid before and we didn't do it well. So let's do it better. And also I think that there's a significant issue around inclusivity. And I don't know if, Rachel, if that's what you're going to speak to. I'll let you.
Yeah, I mean, from moving virtual, we've seen a huge jump in who's able to participate in our programs. And as someone who was unable to travel for workshops, events, conferences, like my access to those things and to people has exploded because everyone was forced to be virtual and not on conference calls, which I suffered through for many years. And so I think inclusion is a huge one, as well as climate. Like, should we be flying all over for meetings and events? That's a question in our network, is like, if people will even be able to fly due to climate considerations and emissions. And then also I think a question is, like, what does hybrid mean? What are we talking about? Are we talking about, someone mentioned in the chat, is hybrid, a virtual track and an in-person track? Or is it pretending that the people who aren't in the room are in the room? What do we actually mean by that is a question I think we should clarify for this conversation.
Yeah, and the size matters, right? Like the size of the group.
Okay, so just to clarify, and maybe I'm wrong, Elise, when we set this up a few weeks ago, my intention, and maybe there's other intentions by everyone here when we talked about hybrid, was that some people are in the room and some people are coming from outside the room, either all of them in another room or various rooms or many, sometimes from their home, or they might be small satellites. But that was the intention, these various scenarios for hybrid.
Yeah, I guess a question for that is in the design does that mean that they're operating together, like walking through an agenda together? Are there two separate agendas? Like where do they intersect and how are we imagining it? I think that's some of the questions in the chat as well.
I mean, I think those are all hybrid, right? It depends on the program you're doing. Like I was telling my small group, we just did one 2 weeks ago that was 20 people in the room, 15 people on the phone, and the room was not set up for hybrid. It started out being, oh, these 2 people have to dial in. And then it became, oh, we want to add. And there was no microphone in the back of the physical room. So nobody could hear the people when they're talking and you're trying to repeat it and all the things.
Okay.
So
guys, sorry to butt in here, but I feel like we're getting into minimum specs, which I think could be a separate fishbowl that we should go into, because this one was really about what's the purpose? Why are we doing it? Which you started off really well, Liz. So we want to continue on. Why are we doing hybrid at all? And I think there was a bit about inclusion there as well. Level playing field. So let's stick with
inclusion
that.
Is great. I like that topic.
Next will be on minimum specs and technology, and we can do one on that. So Paul, did you have something to add?
Yes, thank you. I mean, on the inclusion part of the discussion, that's intriguing for me, why inclusion and inclusiveness are important here. And also about the real meaning of inclusion, because when we're talking about inclusion, we are talking about I'm feeling a little bit excluded when I hear native English speaking so fast as Liz, you did, although I enjoyed the performance. But in terms of, and I'm probably happy to be sufficiently educated in English to understand you well, but I feel a little bit excluded because I'm not a native English speaker, right? And in that sense, but is that really important? And what's the scope of being inclusive in a meeting? The other day, I hosted a session and one of the participants complained because the airtime was not balanced among all participants. And in fact, now we have these beautiful technologies that can show who's speaking more and who's speaking less. And definitely there was an issue there, and that nothing to do with English mastery. But the fact is that I felt that even that it was an imbalanced distribution of time, the meeting was good. I mean, people left satisfied with that. So that's the challenge. Why do we need inclusiveness? What do we mean by inclusiveness? And a little bit more on language barriers and cultural barriers.
That's awesome. I think, Liz, because you had so many interesting things to say, would you just give us a bit of a rundown again about the purpose? Because I do feel like there was lots there and I wasn't capturing.
I get overly excited. My apologies.
Okay.
I feel like the purpose of hybrid events is inclusion. It is to ensure that the people that are in the room and the people that cannot join the room for travel purposes, safety purposes, health reasons, or other reasons, right? They have the ability to participate and become active participants. It is on us as the facilitators and meeting designers to ensure that the environment, the specs you're talking about, will cater to that though, and make sure we can do it right. Many of us were talking about, mural boards and sticky notes and things like that. And can we do the in-person and the hybrid and how difficult that is? Again, a spec perspective, but for the purpose of it, can we still be brainstorming? Can we still be together and do this when we're not all physically together?
Thank you. Oh, we have a couple new fish. Great. Helen, Lucas, go for it.
Thank you. So I agree with everything that's been said in terms of the purpose. I think one of the realities that we face in Canada, and I think other countries face it, is the broadband. The bandwidth is not there in many rural, urban, northern communities, even urban. There are some large-scale apartment blocks where the internet is spotty. So even in a place like Toronto, people have trouble being able to dial in. So there's an element there that the purpose of, and I think it's the reality of where we're going, but how do we ensure inclusivity when we can't get our governments to ensure that everyone has access to decent broadband so they can do it? And I'm complete.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lucas. I like the answers that have been given so far. And I realize that they're answers to the question of why should we do a hybrid event instead of an in-person event? And another way to ask the question of why should we do a hybrid event would be, why should we do a hybrid event instead of an online event? And then the answers might be a little different. I don't have the answers, but I'm interested in hearing what other people's answers are. One would be, well, online is not sufficient for some reasons. And I'm an online guy. We're an online platform. We also do hybrid events, but everybody knows they're more complex. They increase the cost, harder to plan. But there definitely is something about the way people can collaborate in person, the way people can develop a shared understanding, be present with each other, appreciate each other, develop empathy, and that empathy creates new types of thinking. So I think it's good to ask that question from both angles. And I wonder if anyone else has anything to add of why should we go hybrid instead of online only? Thank you.
I was going to answer the question, but Mia was next.
Yeah, I think that was my question too, Lucas. And I come from like a virtual event background, so that's always my bias to start there. I think the argument against myself is that like it's relationship building, all of those things that you mentioned, I totally agree with. And they're like how humans can bond. And then that's how like the work can actually get done. I would argue that you can do that in a virtual space, but it's also just really different to do it in person. But I think it depends on what your goal is. And some of the comments in the chat were about like reach and scale that you can get to. I forget who typed that in, but like your attendance can go so much higher in a virtual setting. But if you have a small group where you really need those people to bond in order to do whatever you're trying to do, then I think that in person really matters. And my question is like, can you do that in a hybrid, or is it like you try to do all or nothing? And that's where I get really torn, that it feels like one or the other will be much better.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm next. Please interrupt me if I'm repeating something that has been said earlier. I just came in. I recently, after a whole summer of, almost vacation, I started to do my live event again, and I was so depressed when some people said, yeah, I'd rather do it in a hybrid fashion. I'd like to stay at the office. I want bazooka. But at the same time, I realized that some people, I don't know about other countries, but I'm in Quebec near Montreal, and the cases of COVID have gone down and up and down. So it's not done yet. Some people are really, really afraid. So I was very upset at the beginning because I thought, geez, let's do this. Let's wear a mask. I bought 2 HEPA filters for the room. But at the same time, some people are so stressed out of their wits with COVID that they don't want to come. Some even don't want to come because they know that they might infect somebody. And that's the reason why, I'd rather stay home. And I was really depressed because I understand this. And at the same time, we have to respect that. And I don't think that being hybrid is in any way less good than a pure live event. Some people really enjoy the virtual event these days. I think it's our role to make sure that they interact with the live crowd in some fashion. And I introduced a new concept this week. I call that, it's not very original, but a match. I tell people, bring your phone, bring your headphone, and we might match you with somebody on screen. And I make sure that we have 2 screens, one for the presentation for the live audience and another screen with another projector so that people see everybody in the Zoom room. So we can match people in the room with people on Zoom. So that creates more interaction. And I've got at least one co-host to make sure that I don't have to focus on the Zoom crowd. Otherwise, it's impossible to facilitate the 2 crowds. But, I think one of the good questions is, yeah, sorry.
Sorry, excuse me. We're focusing on why do hybrid right now in this round. What's the purpose of the hybrid? And then we're going to do a round where we can talk about technology and
sorry. But why is because people want it.
Yeah, I think it's a great. Thanks for the contribution, and it's great to remember that we do have COVID. For some people, it's still very real. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh no, that's okay. I was expecting some kind of interruption.
Done, you guys. If we're getting done with the purpose, we can switch it up.
I did have my hand up a while ago. I just wanted to say one other thing that I don't think has been mentioned. Many of my clients are being mandated to go back to the office X number of days a week. And what I'm hearing from them is employees come in and it's like tumbleweeds. It's like, where is everyone? They call meetings. They know people are somewhere in the building and still people stay on Zoom or on Teams. So in that case, one of my clients in particular is saying everyone is in the building that day, needs to gather because there's got to be a reason we're all coming together in this building this day. Now, whether that's right or wrong, I just think that's another example I'm seeing a lot of is we're in the building. Why are we still on Zoom? We need to get together and make use of this FaceTime. So that's it for me.
I just wanted to pull out from the chat. I think Daita, I don't know if I'm saying your name correctly, but had mentioned that they're hearing people ask for in-person, but it's a minority. And so I think that's something that we're experiencing too. We're getting constantly asked for in-person, and yet we want to keep the inclusion. We don't want to just have an in-person because it will exclude so many people. So that's a reason for us is that we're being pushed into hybrid, but because people do want to return to in-person meetings. But then also there's some people who cannot return to in-person yet. So.
Hi, Francois. You're on the other Francois now. Sorry, but
all right. Okay. Yes. So one of the what the pandemic has done, and the online meetings, online conferences, online meetups has created a whole range of new possibilities that were not available before in an in-person ability, and that's especially relevant for larger organizations that operate in all kinds of different locations. So the ability of people from different parts of the country or different parts of the world to come together was for and for people who are not necessarily the higher ups and are well paid, but people at all levels to come together and have conversations online. That is something that wasn't possible before without a huge budget, at least. So there's a whole range. We have discovered a whole range of new possibilities. Okay, the ability to collaborate online is so much easier than. To collaborate using online tools is so much easier than try to do it in person. So there's a whole range of new possibilities that have emerged. So the purpose of the hybrid, of course, it's understandable. People want to go. There is something special about being in touch and being able to touch people, literally, and to be close. So people want to go back to that too, but they don't want to lose all the extra benefits that have been gains from the online. And so whether it'll work or not, that remains to be seen. But I can certainly see the demand for the hybrid is there. And therefore we have the purpose, as far as I'm concerned, we have to respond to that, and we have to find ways to make it work in a way.
Thank you. Thanks, Francois. We actually are, I realize we're still on the same purpose. So maybe we should go to some of the other questions that came up there, which, and some people have been diving into, we have so much chat. I'm trying to go back, but So we started with purpose, and level playing fields. So what are some of the tools that people are using to make that happen? Maybe let's jump in with that. And I know there's lots, so let's try to be quick. You don't have to speak quickly, but just be succinct.
And then on a time check perspective, because I think we also want to spend some time actually capturing and writing things down. Maybe another 5 to 10 minutes. Does that seem correct?
Yes, let's do 5 minutes. So maybe if you're interested in being in the fishbowl, raise your hand, and maybe we can put can you raise your hand using the reactions button? I think that'll be more helpful for Elise. And if you raise your hand with the reaction, we'll put you in the middle, and let's go for 5. So maybe we just try to get 5 people in the center right now. And we have 5 minutes. So let's go for that. Does anyone want to share a little bit about some of the tools, tips, tricks, highlights? Nobody. Wow. So this is the issue with the online events in my mind, is that, okay, Amanda's stepping up, because I'm just wondering, are people checking Facebook, or are they, okay, Heather. Anyone else? Last chance. Okay.
So you're asking tips and tricks about hybrid?
Yeah, just maybe some highlights, some things that you've used, some things to spur some discussion before we go to the next agenda item, where we're going to start to try to track these. So give us some inspiration. So let's start with the 4 that we are here, since we have 5 minutes, and then we'll rejig, I think, in the small groups. Okay, 5. I think our fish are complete. Thank you. Okay, just whoever starts. Okay, I think Heather, she volunteered.
Yep. Well, I'm just happy to put something in the chat that I shared earlier in the breakout. It's a link to a quiz of why should we have hybrid. This is from Lauren Green. She's a facilitator and one of the experts that I go to. And so some of the top tips that I've had are, how do we design for the margins? Meaning, how do we design for those people that are in person and design for those folks that are online, and figuring out what are the needs of those and how does that align with the purpose of the meeting so that we can reach all of those design needs. And I do that from both a virtual and visual facilitation, but also from a tech hosting point of view. So I'm happy to answer questions around tech hosting, but I want to defer my time to someone else to share as well.
Please don't let me start.
I'll just say some general high-level ideas. We all know it's going to take more work, more time, more hands. In particular, having people pay attention to different sets of folks, and a lot of that time is going to be up front. This is a great opportunity for us to be creative. We aren't simply transplanting our in-person events to hybrid. We're creating all new events with new designs. So it's really an opportunity to play, and I'll leave it there.
I have 2 events in mind when I think of the answer to this one. And one is the larger program that's got almost a broadcast audience and then an in-person audience. And we like to view those as digital first. So the focus is on, how does it show for the broadcast audience? Can you build it like a TV show, a talk show, a variety show? And the in-person audience feels like an in-studio audience, because they're going to have this very different kind of experience. And then when I think of a smaller group where we're actually trying to do team building, brainstorming, team bonding even, again, thinking the digital audience first and leveraging the Zoom and the cell phone to do things in the room with the people that are there for that digital audience and make them feel like they're watching a show, but they're a part of an interactive TV show, and we can bring them together. That's worked really well for us. The challenge is when we didn't know about or didn't thoughtfully plan the room, and you get stuck with those things, the microphone issue being the number one challenge, just like someone was saying we had with the speaker phones way back when. We hit that again. So trying to make sure you fix that with a great Logitech mic.
Yeah, I haven't done a large event. I'm using the microphone from the Owl camera, which is amazing. Obviously, it's $1,500 Canadian, but the OWL camera is quite good. The speaker from the camera is really good too for small groups, like 25 people. But this is really important. If we are to use the phone or iPads, the bandwidth is crucial. As soon as you have more than 5 people using the same bandwidth in the room, the signal goes down. So you have to make sure that you have a very, very strong signal, or even signal amplifier, Google Pods or whatever they're called. But this is really important. The other thing also, and I'll stop after that, I mentioned it earlier, is to make sure that the audience see the Zoom, the live audience sees the Zoom audience. So they have a connection. Even though the facilitator doesn't see the Zoom audience, you don't have to. You focus on the audience, and the audience will tell you, oh, by the way, somebody's laughing on the Zoom screen, which is great because you suddenly become a nicer person. But the technology behind these hybrid events is mind-boggling with respect to regular live event or even a virtual event. The fact that we do both at the same time, it's mind-boggling. Any glitch will make you suffer.
Thanks. Thank you, guys. Thanks, everyone. I think we're coming to the end of our fishbowl. I'll just ask Elise how we're doing here in time in the agenda. So if there's any final thoughts, maybe we can, it's up to you, Elise, in terms of our time, but I do feel like
I think it would be lovely to hear from both Amanda and Rachel, who haven't spoken on this one yet, and then we should move on.
Great.
Rachel, did you want to go ahead? You've been sharing such brilliance in the chat.
Oh, well, yeah, I just wanted to offer a very specific tool that I have found helpful, which is to have in the planning process designated participant advocates, one person, a specific individual on your planning team who is the advocate for the in-person experience, and another who is an advocate for the remote experience. We've also have had this helpfully play out as they sort of turn into the facilitators for those different contexts. But participant advocates is the tool I want to share.
Thank you for that. And I think that my little offering is what I've been finding. Most of my clients I work with don't have the budget to hire like big AV teams, companies. We're sort of MacGyvering our way in. And most of, just for some context, so the hybrid events are like 30 to 40 to 50 people in the room, similar plus online. So it's not the more smaller. And the main thing that occupies so much of my time, like just to get it right, is the audio, because Zoomies being able to hear roomies, roomies being able to hear Zoomies, bringing people together for those connection points, multiple video cameras, not ending up with sound issues, and just also being constrained by, we have one day, it's not like we have 3 days on site to figure this out. So I think part of my job has been learning like how to write tech setup guides for everyone who's on site that day. Like this camera goes here, this microphone goes here, this camera goes over here, it's going to do this, which I never imagined doing, but I think it's such a big part of hybrid events going well. I'll pause there.
Okay, amazing. Thank you, everybody who contributed to a fishbowl. Thank you, Lori, Michelle, Lori, for facilitating. Thank you, Nancy, for keeping track of time. A lot of specific things came up, but when we talk in large groups, the specifics also kind of get washed over us in sort of broad waves. So I thought we'd spend some time actually capturing honest to goodness, very explicit, do this, don't do that, keep this in mind kind of tips. And for that purpose, I've created a Miro board. I'll show you kind of what I was thinking. You are free to do with it as you will, because, hey, it's your session. But up here in this top area is a place for existing guides. Other people have written about these things before. So there's the Logitech Room Configurator and Session Labs guide and video tutorials and things that are there for you. So if you know of somebody who's already got brilliant wisdom, please just throw it there. Warning signs and deal breakers. What is something when you're going into a hybrid event that is a no-go? That really should be a bright red line that says we will not take this as a gig if we're facilitators, or we need to not accept this for our teams if we're leaders in a business sense. And then we've talked about a couple of scenarios that are pretty different. There's the workshop, the conference, the big event, and the hybrid requirements for that are kind of different from I've got a team and the two folks showed up online. Or I thought I was going to do an in-person meeting and the plane didn't arrive. All of those kinds of situations. So if we were to be talking to people planning these meetings, if we were to be talking to the hotels where we booked the conference room, what should we have them expect to have in place, knowing that hybrid might be our situation at any moment? And then what else have I not thought of? Whatever you want to put, just put it down there. I'm going to open up some breakout rooms. They are organized by topic. You join whichever ones make you happy. So they are self-join. The topics are the business of hybrid. So those intersection of those categories with how do I do contracts? What do I tell people, right? How do I charge for this? Who do I hire? Logistics. Which cameras do I use? How do I set up the room? All of that kind of stuff. And then technique. So how do we talk to people? What's a great hybrid checkout, check-in, all of those kinds of things. Those are open now. You should be able to get into them. And then I will close them at 10 after the hour.
At least, would you have 2 rounds? Or just one round?
Just one round. And oops.
So
what did I just do there? Pick one and you can move freely. So law of two feet, move as you want. Join a conversation that speaks to you and capture ideas in the Miro board. Or hang out with me and I'll just like chillax. Hybrid chillaxing. And if you need any help moving into a room, I'd be very happy to assist. Wow, Jamie Cameron Harley. That's like one big long name. Nice to see you here. Jamie, are you actually here or are you pretending to be here and doing something else in the background?
That was a beautiful chime.
Isn't that pretty? Yay, Miro. Yeah. Welcome back, everybody. So I'm looking at the Miro board and I see that it doesn't have a ton of stuff on it. And I have a couple of theories about that. One of them is that there's been a ton written already, right? There are big, long, beautiful guides, and writing things down isn't necessarily why we come to an event like this, right? We come because we get a chance to talk to other people who've been there and done that and have things to share with us and ideas to bounce off. So before we do our checkout rounds and capture all of the final thoughts, I thought maybe we would capitalize on that as best we can before we go and exchange the gift of offering to keep the conversation going. So if you are willing, and it's totally optional, share your LinkedIn profile and some ideas about how people might continue the conversation with you.
Yeah, I love the conversation in my group with Liz and then joined later by Francois, and I think top experts in this group, I'm sure. So I'm so pleased to be here, and thank you so much, Liz, for hosting these circles.
You bet. And I will absolutely be super interested to hear what y'all talked about, because I just sat here like watching sticky notes for a while. So And then for a checkout, in the chat, however you want to do it, this is the question that came to me, but you feel free to answer in whatever way comes to you. What's the most important thing you'd want to share with somebody who couldn't be here today?
Don't assume anything.
Very succinct.
Let me.
Yeah, Michelle, do you want to add that suggestion verbally? Because there's a ton here. This chat is off the hook. We will definitely be exporting that for everybody.
I was just saying the chat, I think, has a lot. I think you can, if you just go on the 3 buttons, maybe before we end just as a reminder, before we end the call, if you right click on the 3 buttons, we can do that just before. If people want to save the chat, there's lots of links and things in there that were shared. And yeah, that was.
Yeah.
So Michelle, you kicked this off. Like, you were the instigator for this whole thing. Now that you've done 3 of these, how has your thinking about hybrid events changed? And what do you think the key takeaway is?
For me, I think the main thing that's changed is technology. I think that there's more technology to support hybrid meetings than I realize or realized. So I think there's a lot of potential to make the experience better. And it would be nice. I am interested in that conversation, and I would like to carry that on further. And I realize that the Miro didn't capture everything, but there is quite a bit to capture. So maybe we should have more of a write shop type event that's focused on writing, because this was really a lot of sharing and lots of good ideas came out. And I also do appreciate that I have this kind of narrow focus. So when I heard some of the other ideas that came out and what are interesting people and what they're learning or what they're experiencing, it made me realize, wow, there's a lot more going on too to think about. So just, it could be a much bigger conversation, and it is for lots of people. So I am keen to keep it going. Elise, I know you picked this up, and I think the idea of writing things down would be useful. One of the people in the chat I saw said she writes on this a lot and would be interested to keep writing. So maybe we should have this person lead us in I'm volunteering somebody to sort of just lead us through maybe a bit of how to write this down. We're having good conversations, but how can we capture it in a way? I mean, I do have some ideas, but after these great ideas come out, we need to take a few minutes to breathe, write, and maybe review, and then converse again. Is anyone interested to write things down? Maybe not right this second, but to try this time to write.
Can you repost a link to the Miro board, please?
The current Miro board?
Yeah, well, the one that you want us to write on. Thank you.
The Miro, sorry, there was a mural, now there's a Miro. This is also, we've sort of been
Miro, sorry.
Platforms, but I think, Nancy, if you're keen, maybe we could agree that so much came out of it, and we had such a good group today that had lots to share. I don't know if people are keen. Would you come back and take a few moments to type and write together?
Yeah, one suggestion I put in the chat is perhaps we can do this asynchronously at first. Let's say there's some focus questions and spaces to write, and then we come together, we could do a scan and discuss. I think in our group, well, I'll just speak for myself. I found the trying to write on the Post-its and scan the others while really listening to each other was pretty hard. And I found that it was kind of disrupting my thoughts about what people were saying. So if we could capture things asynchronously in advance, ahead of another meeting, and then use the time to converse and scan and discuss recurring themes rather than try to write and talk at the same time, that might be a good approach. Whether we use Miro, or anything else. Jamboard. Does that make sense? To capture in advance in writing so we can use the time for conversation instead of writing?
Yeah, I think it's great.
I would like to point out that we have just discussed something that will help our own hybrid and online meetings. And our attendees are having just the same issues that we are. In fact, even more, because we are using these online tools on a more regular basis than they are. So maybe there's something there that we need to capture as well in terms of our designs and our techniques. And I'm complete.
Nancy, I'll toss in a thought. Sometimes I see people who are new to Slack get really uncomfortable because they feel like it's similar to email where they have to read every message. And if we instead open up the fire hose of participation channels, email discussion thread, Miro board, Slack chat, phone call, everything, we would get such a richness of ability for people to put in just what they're able to, even if they only have 5 or 10 minutes. But we also have to come with the understanding that it's impossible for everyone to read everything. So if you approach it how I look at it, where I was focusing on the chat sometimes, focusing on the Miro board, and I missed this or that, but then it's completely okay. I'm just trying to grasp as much as I can. I don't need a full understanding of everything that was said. In fact, none of us could hear everything because there are multiple breakout rooms going on. And at an in-person conference, we don't have those expectations of knowing everything that was said by everybody in every private conversation. So if we approach it the same way and we just realize we're swimming in an ocean of really interesting ideas, trying to gather as much as we can, then it'll be, we might still open up the participation channels for everybody to contribute what they can. Collectively, it's this massive blob of value. And then we just have to accept that the other way to go is, like you said, create an asynchronous participation channel ahead of time. It will require more people to spend more time before this meeting, like we just popped in here with no preparation. And then people that do prepare, we might feel like, people that don't prepare might feel like second-class citizens in that they didn't have the richness and afford the time to be able to participate. So now we might create a new problem. Just, not, there's pros and cons of everything.
Yeah, there are consequences when you don't do something in advance, for good or for bad, for whatever reason. So yeah, I understand. Well, I'd be happy to brainstorm with other people about how to create a communication channel if we want to do something in advance of the next meeting or during. I don't know if I want to lead it, but I will certainly be happy to meet with people and talk about how I capture mine with LinkedIn posts, and I write newsletters. That's mainly how and then in my course content. So I'm happy to brainstorm with someone if you want. So Lucas, okay, great.
And Nancy and Lucas, those who are in my group heard me say this a few times, but I'm wondering what the middle is. And the middle might be having live polling. So we all get to a point where we're like, oh, okay, we talked about this, talked about that, chat said this. Here's the question that all these things are responding to. Let's put up the question now and everybody can add their stuff, right? That way we're pausing to document together. We can even, do an upvote or whatever to document as we're going, to have the live and the chat happening, and you can focus on one or the other, but to have that collaborative pause to bring it all together.
Do you want to be part of this conversation, Sarah? Because I think I don't mean to say, okay, that's a great idea, so now you have to help implement it, but I think that would be interesting to talk about that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I don't know, that's happened before. Just slippery slope warning there.
Yeah,
then you got to organize something, and there's 60 facilitators, and you got an hour. So let's see if there's a Miro board and a chat, and have fun.
Yeah, I think we all have to be circumspect about what we can take on. I just made a little comment about writing, and now it's bigger than I thought. So I'm happy to set up a meeting with Lucas and Sarah if you want to just at least chat. No one has to do anything. We can just brainstorm and say, this is our idea.
Yeah.
No.
Nancy, please invite me. To.
Paul?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
So in our last couple minutes, let me make a promise since I hosted this particular one. We will edit the recording to take out the bits where it's people going, wait a second, am I in the right place? And post this in the event recording area in the Meeting Innovation community. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this community, those recordings are public. So you don't have to be logged in to access them. We'll also include a link to the Miro board, download the chat, all of those kinds of things. For those of you who are concerned about those things, just know not very many people ever look at them, but they are there. And then if you have an offer for this group and want it in a place where others can see it, right? Hey, I'm organizing an asynchronous dump plus poll plus better way of doing conversations. You can also add that comment there so that in case you've missed somebody's email address or somebody who catches the recording will be able to see it and join you later. So I will take care of making sure that part of next steps is facilitated. And if anybody else has a strong commitment to make to the group, now's your moment, because we have hit close to the end of our time. So many brilliant things in the chat. So awesome that everybody just showed up to just share generously like this. Very cool.
Well, thank you for everyone who was responsible for this.
Absolutely.
Elise, Michelle, and others.
Yeah, Nancy and group, I'm just gonna wait on the facilitators listserv, that F for something, the one that came out during the pandemic for news. If you guys are gonna do something, I have to say that I'm less interested in the advance and prep right now than that pause idea. But I'm gonna wait for you guys to bring up something, and I'd love to join if something gets hosted. But I do think writing it up what was the original intention was to, at the end, kind of have a summary that we could maybe all take home. So there may be lots of things in the chat, but hopefully this next session will help bring us there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Elise, for taking this on.
Thank you so much, Elise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Many thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. And Elise, see you in October.
What?
See you in October.
Oh, yeah,
Don't
definitely.
forget about that. Yeah.
Yeah, remind me. It's great.
Bye.
Bye.